Hey friends, welcome back to the Big Talk podcast. I'm your host, Tricia Brouk, founder of the Big Talk Academy, award-winning director, producer, and author, and this is episode 616. On today's show, I am talking with Carol Enneking. Carol is one of my amazing clients and a Big Talk Academy alum, and her book, The Rebalancing Act, came out today from the Big Talk Press, our publishing company. In addition to being an author, Carol is a Houston-based consultant and speaker who helps businesses achieve excellence through talent, learning, and a culture of belonging. She is a highly accomplished senior human resources executive with expertise in talent management, staff coaching, and mentoring, enterprise learning, leadership development, and performance management. Carol provides a unique holistic perspective to tackling complex business challenges. I'm super excited for you to meet her today and for you to learn from this truly influential voice. Super excited that your book is dropping today. And we will, of course, share all of these links in the show notes so that you can be part of this incredible book launch. Let's do this. Carol, I am so excited to welcome you to the Big Talk. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Amazing, amazing. For our listeners, we always take our guests back to the place it all started. And when I read scripts, the first thing I do is think about the backstory of the character. And I want to take people into the backstory of your character. And you can go back as far as you want. Start with where that is. Make your way to this moment, this very moment in time with us today, Carol.
Great. Well, so glad to be here. And I guess I could start very early in my life. I loved performing. I loved to be on stage. And my mom says I was only 2 or 3 years old when I would call my siblings and my parents in to watch my shows on the fireplace at home. So I guess I always knew that I would do something in front of people. People were always the center of my life growing up. And I got into marketing and managed gas stations of all things. Not a very glamorous job, but I got an opportunity to learn a lot about business and people and the art of working together as teams. And it was almost like running my own small business, a territory of gas stations. But I went through a lot of growing experiences at that time that shaped my future career.
I'm going to pause
And
you. I'm going to pause you
yeah,
right there because this is amazing. I want you to talk a little bit about the you being born to perform and
yeah,
the dancing, the theater, the singing, all those lessons that you studied growing up
okay.
and the being on stage and how that set you up to be a marketing lead and to create a culture inside of a gas station. So
Okay.
connect those dots for us, Carol. You're doing a great job.
Okay. So I was born to perform, and whether it was the school play or leading a group of people in student council or being an officer on my drill team, I was always out there in front of people. And I knew I wanted a job that had me in front of people. And it's kind of funny. In high school, my first job was a lifeguard, and I was so bored because I didn't get to talk to anyone. So then I found a job in customer service at a retail store, and I loved it. I got to meet new customers all the time. And so that sort of shaped the career path that I would choose to take. And I ended up taking a job that wasn't that glamorous out of college. I managed gas stations, but it was a great learning ground. And I've found, and this has been so profound for me as I'm 30 plus years into my career now, to talk to people newer in their careers and talk to them about how you never know what you're going to learn in a job that's going to stay with you forever. And you don't walk out of school, whether it's high school, college, wherever, you don't walk into a job and expect to just be the boss. And learning all those lessons about how to take orders from people, how to deal with things when they aren't done the way you'd want them to be, how to motivate people, especially how to motivate people who are making minimum wage and working just to make ends meet, how to manage a business. I feel like all those lessons were taught to me in that first job, and I never would have thought that going into it. So it's always so interesting, even with my adult kids now, when they start talking to me about their jobs, to be able to say, I don't know where your path is going to take you, but I do know that you are learning valuable lessons that you'll reflect on for the rest of your career, because that's certainly what's happened to me. So I would be in gas stations and be trying to get people to care about customers and want to go above and beyond. And I learned very quickly that the relationships that people have with each other as teammates and with their manager is key to anything. And so that really fueled my passion for leadership development, management, working with teams, because you can be in whatever environment, whether it's managing a gas station, working on the front line in a manufacturing plant anywhere in the world. And yes, I've been to manufacturing plants all over the world, and they look very similar. You can be sitting in an executive office, but the bottom line is people don't really care how smart you are or how much you know until they know that you care about them as people.
Mm.
And so building those cultures where respect and valuing people are number one has been a quest of mine all along. So for a while, I was in learning and development. I ended up being an accidental entrepreneur. I had my own company for 18 years.
That doesn't
Simply
sound
because
very accidental. 18 years doesn't sound very accidental, Carol. Keep going.
I suppose at the end it wasn't, but at the beginning I thought it was just a small contract gig while I uh, got used to being a mother. I had had my first child and I wanted to have something more flexible. And so a wonderful boss who had more vision than I probably did at that time said, you know, you could do this contract. So I ended up starting my company at the age of 29, which is far earlier than a lot of people think about being an entrepreneur. And I always like to say, I think that the man upstairs had bigger plans than I had for myself, because things just started to happen. The phone started ringing, people started calling, and all of a sudden, this business that I thought would be just a small part-time gig until I went back corporate took off and took me around the world and helped me develop my own team of people to help deliver these messages. And it was all centered around building employee cultures where people feel valued, respected, they want to show up and do their best. And that really starts with their relationships with their managers, their relationships with one another, and it all goes from there. And then, of course, you've got to get into the business strategy too, because all of that feeling good and happy and having that great camaraderie is wonderful. But if your business isn't doing what it's intended to do, you're not going to be in business very long. So there was a strategy tie in there too. But along the way in my professional life, I also had a lot of road bumps, I guess you could call them, in my personal life. And so things didn't always go as planned. I had kids that had some special needs, whether they were ill for a while. We had a lot of doctor visits in their early years for various reasons, situations that required me to make different decisions about their schooling, about their childcare, all along the way. I had some own health issues of my own. I had a period of time where I was legally blind, and thanks to the miracles of modern science, I was able to benefit from a cornea transplant, and I've now had 4 cornea transplants. So happy to be able to look at you today and see you. So it's not that I had no trials of my own, but it was just this constant navigation of trying to figure out what's the right decision right now, what makes sense for me and the people I love in this moment right now. And so I continued being an entrepreneur until then another road bump came along and I ended up suddenly going through a divorce. And that was not something I expected. And it goes back to a lot of how I was brought up. I was brought up to never fail. You know, I was very afraid of failure. And I think I had to unpack that a lot later in my adult life to really get at the root of that. But I didn't want to fail in my marriage. I certainly didn't want to have the world know that I didn't make it. And I felt that way about my jobs, about anything related to my life. I wanted to give it the best effort. And boy, you talk about committed. I am committed to a fault, even when something's not working. And so I ended up, there was just one event that was, I guess, the straw that broke the camel's back. And I ended up getting a divorce. And I knew that day that my life would change. So once again, I was in that position where I was saying, what's the right answer right now for myself, for my children, for all those around me? And so I ended up selling my company. I agreed to work with them for a few years, but I always knew I would go back to corporate, and I did that for 7 years. And I think once again, I wanted to prove to myself I could do it. And so I rose to the level of vice president. I wanted to be an executive. And I think after all those years on the outside, talking to CEOs about how I thought the company should be and the things they needed to do, I wanted to prove to myself that I could go back on the inside and be an effective team player and be an effective leader. And it taught me a lot. Just when I thought maybe I knew how the work world worked, 25 years into my career, I was going back into corporate and learning all over again. And so I did that until last year. And then I decided to write a book and go back out on my own. So the book is called The Rebalancing Act. And I think it really is the great capstone phrase that really encompasses all of my time to this point, because it's constantly the art of rebalancing. What do I need to do right now? What's the best next step? And along the way, in going through this journey, I've found that the less I try to deliberately manage and control every aspect of things, the happier and more fulfilled I can be. For me, it's faith. Everybody has their own higher power, higher calling, something they believe in. My faith has been my guiding principle, and just letting go and knowing that I don't necessarily know where the path is taking me, but I do know that this is the right next step, and I'm going to trust that the path will take me where I'm meant to go. And it's been very freeing to do that, to give up the control, to not be afraid to fail, to not be afraid to course correct. And so that's what I'm writing about in the book. That's what I'm speaking about. And I think I always knew I would be out in front, trying to use my voice to influence others, but it's been really exciting to start seeing this come to fruition and be on this journey right now with the book and starting to do public speaking, which is what I've always wanted to do.
Amazing, Carol. Thank you for that incredible, clear, articulate, beautiful, and powerful backstory. I want to talk a little bit about kind of the themes that I've been pulling from this and listening to you, which are surrender, trust, culture, leadership, compassion, not only of others, but of self. And what I'm putting together is, as far as a through line with what you've just shared, is clearly you're an influential voice and you've always wanted to use your voice to inspire others, whether it's from the fireplace stage to entertain and inspire people to feel better, or at gas stations where you've been using your influential voice to create camaraderie of team in order to have success at business. And then, of course, corporate and your own company. And going through life, as we all do as human beings, with challenges, difficulties, whether it's having a cornea transplant, having a divorce, having children, not having children, whatever it is that we experience as a human being, you've just collectively reminded us that we're all the same, essentially. And that brings me to your book, The Rebalancing Act, Wisdom from Working Women for Success That Matters. In all of your years leading teams, being an entrepreneur, being a consultant, being in corporate, and now stepping fully into the face of the Rebalancing Act as a speaker and an author, how does it feel to use your voice now?
It feels more amazing than I ever thought possible. And it's not amazing in that it makes me feel good. It's amazing in the reactions that I get when I feel that I'm helping someone problem solve, work through an issue, be more human, be less perfect and less polished. I think that's a real key to all of this, is opening up to what's really going on and being willing to have that discussion. It is so rewarding, and it makes me really excited to get up in the morning and just keep plugging away and keep doing more and getting better and trying to reach more people.
I'm so glad you are as well. And for those of you who are listening and watching, Carol is a Big Talk Academy alum, certified speaker. We are currently working together one-on-one inside of that container. And she's also being published by the Big Talk Press, which I am super honored to be publishing the Rebalancing Act. I want you to share with our listeners, Carol, a little bit about where this book, where the inception of this book came from, what the process was like co-authoring it or collaborating with your BFF, and what it means now to give voice to all women who are trying to balance it all.
I knew what I had been through. I knew I've had my own journey. I also left out earlier that I had a very big issue hit in 2020, which was breast cancer right in the middle of the pandemic. And my body started giving me some really clear signals that I just could not burn the candle at both ends like I had been for so long. And I am just such a type A personality. And even though I knew that, I went back to work and started doing it again. And so just stepping back and really reflecting on, first of all, what's the legacy I really want to leave? When I am gone from this earth, or even when I'm gone from working anymore and I sail off into the sunset with my amazing husband, Eric, I'm happy to say that had that road curveball, I guess I would say, hit as well. And I'm so excited for that second act. But when I'm gone, what do I want people to say about me? And I don't want them to say, wow, she was so busy and got so much done and always seems stressed. And I wish I would have learned that a lot earlier, but I don't learn easily. It takes a while. So I'm really hopeful that other people will learn more quickly. And I also knew that I didn't corner the market on how to have a good balance between all the aspects of life and all the roles we play as women, especially working women. I knew there were other women who had done it very differently than I had. And so I started talking to some of them and I started asking them what traps they'd encountered along the way in their career and all the different adulting roles they'd played. And I was getting some great information. And I looked at people that I respected, that I considered role models, and I was asking them how they did it. And I think as women, we always ask, how do you do it? How do you do it all? And spoiler alert, we don't do it all. we have to figure out what matters and do that
Right.
really well. And we have to let the other stuff go. And just because we have all these choices doesn't mean that we can avoid making choices. We can't give our all to the things that are important if we're stretched too thin. And so that whole concept is what led me to want to write the book. And having never written a book, my best friend from childhood, who I will say often joined me in these public displays. I believe we used to dance on the playground together in elementary school, but she is a wonderful author. She's written 16 books. And so I called her, I said, what do you think about writing a book with me? And she said she was in, and it's just been wonderful because she's been able to coach me through all of those firsts that I didn't know about. And when we connected with you, it was just like the icing on top of the cake. And the funniest thing about that, Tricia, is that I had never heard of you. I just knew that I wanted a speaker coach. And it was through interviewing people for the book that I even found you. And it's just a great example of how things come together the way they're meant to. And when you take that next step in trust and faith, things will happen that you never, ever thought possible. And so I decided I needed to interview these other women for the book. And we interviewed over 70 women and men. And we asked them a lot of questions about their own journey and how they've managed to find balance and where it's really been hard for them. And one of the people I interviewed, I just mentioned, hey, I'd really love to be in public speaking someday. I just don't know exactly how to get there or how to get started. And she said, you need to talk to Tricia Brouk. And so that's how I even found you. And then I happened to be on LinkedIn one day and see that you were offering the Big Talk Academy. And I talked to my husband and he said, go for it. I think you should. And I like to say now that I went from thinking, okay, I wonder if I could make a go of this and how in the world I'd even try, to wow, I can't wait to get started. And then the whole process of having the book just about finished and ready to publish and talking with you about that, it all just came together. And I'm so excited I can hardly contain myself. So So between Bethany Bradshaw, who helped me tell the stories in a compelling way, and then meeting you through the process of this book and these interviews, it's just been a really exciting journey for the last year or so, and it's just getting started.
It
So,
is. You are just getting started in your third chapter, would you say?
yeah, I guess it is my third chapter.
It's incredible. It's incredible. Well, first, I want to thank the person that you interviewed and Eric for cheering you on. And I want to thank my team who posted on LinkedIn, which is where you saw the information about the
Yeah.
Big Talk Academy. Without putting ourselves out there, the people who are meant to hear from us can't, which is why it's so important that we as influential voices make sure that we're always putting ourselves out there and that we are living in complete alignment with integrity with our values so that people can refer us, so that people can reach out and work with us. So, and that's what you're doing right now with publishing the Rebalancing Act, putting it out there. It drops on September 10th. We are going to put the link in the show notes so that you can buy it. You'll be able to get it on Amazon, but I want to make sure everyone who's listening and watching, do not pre-order this book. We are launching the book so that everyone can get access and buy it on September 10th. That way it can become a best-selling book with Amazon. So we're going to make sure that this book drops for you on September 10th, and you're going to be able to go to Amazon and purchase this and purchase one for your BFF, because together we are better. And the more conversations we can have around the Rebalancing Act, wisdom from working women for success that matters, the more conversations we can have, the more permission we can give ourselves and each other to let go of having to do it all. And that is so important. I love this book. I'm so honored to be publishing it with the Big Talk Press. I'm so excited for what's to come with you, Carol. And are you ready for some fast talk?
Yes, I am.
All right. What's your favorite book?
I think right now my favorite book is probably The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I just finished it. I've been doing a lot of reading. World War II historical fiction seems to really have me right now, and that one was especially poignant. I just loved it.
Amazing. Who's your favorite speaker and why?
That's a tough one. I really like you. I really like you a
Oh,
lot, Tricia.
thank you.
So you would be up there, and I have a couple others. Brene Brown, I would say, was a life changer for me when I saw the first vulnerability talk. She was so relatable, and I just loved the message. And then I also love Simon Sinek, and I don't know that I'm saying his name correctly, but
You are.
when he talks about the power of why, I have shared that with so many business people, and that's been really impactful as well. So different things for different reasons, but several favorites. You right up there. So
Thank you. I appreciate and receive that. What do you like to do the day before you speak, whether it's on stage, virtual, or on a podcast like this?
do like to rehearse. I do like to make sure that I have everything that I need so that I can relax and feel calm. But along with rehearsing, one of the biggest things, and this has always been big to me, whether it was a dance way back when or a public speaking engagement, visualize.
Mm.
In my mind, I'm visualizing success. I'm thinking of those feelings I will get. I'm thinking of how the audience will feel. I'm thinking of the desired outcomes. And I'm always keeping that mission in focus, because when I can make it more about that, the message and how it will be received, it takes me out of my own head and it makes it not about me anymore. It's about using the voice to help people. And I also pray. And when I pray and I feel like I've got the Lord on my side, that helps me have peace about it too. I will say I always am nervous a little bit. And I think that's important. I told somebody when I used to teach presentation skills, I would say, if you didn't get nervous, I'd worry that maybe you weren't thinking about it enough or thinking about the impact you're going to have enough. So I think some nerves are good, but it's about channeling it productively, and doing that the day before really helps me get ready, get psyched, get in the zone, be ready for success.
All music to my ears, Carol. What podcast are you currently obsessed with?
Well, I do love your podcast. I've been listening to that a lot. So that's one. And I have to say, I'm a little bit new to podcasts because I am such a music lover
Mm.
that I feel like every day I'm finding new podcasts. And although I'd love to say that they're all profound, some of them are just looking back at like life in the 80s and laughing about the fashions in the movies. And I'm trying to remember the name of one of them, but I've just been exploring a lot of podcasts lately. And I think that's been really important for me. But I do love the variety that you have on your podcast. And I think the reason I'm listening to yours a lot right now is that it's just on my mind. It's so relevant to what I'm going through. And I
Mm.
love the speakers that you feature. So I think your podcast is
Well,
fantastic.
thank you. I really appreciate that. It means a lot to me that you listen, and I'm really glad that we're bringing you value. That is our goal.
Yeah, I think you probably inspired me because in the Big Talk Academy, you had so many things for us to listen to. And I thought, okay, it's time for me to really get into the podcasts because I can name that tune in two notes and I love music. So I usually opt for music instead of talking, but these podcasts are amazing. I will say another one I've always loved and really made an effort to listen to from the very beginning is Emmanuel Achos. He's a
Mm.
fellow Texas Longhorn, uncomfortable conversations with a black man. And now he
That
just wrote a book, Uncomfortable Conversations with a Jew. It's amazing. I don't know if I have the title exactly right, but he and Noah Tishby wrote that book. And I just love Emmanuel's message. I have his book on display over here. He was the graduation speaker for my daughter for her class at UT, and he's just had some really important conversations on that podcast. So late
absolutely.
entry there.
We're going to put all of these podcasts and the link to your book in the show notes because it's really important that our listeners have access to the podcasts that our guests listen to. So if you want to learn about more podcasts, keep listening to ours because you'll learn from our guests as well.
Wonderful.
Carol, it has been such a pleasure to have you on the Big Talk podcast. Aside from going to get your book on Amazon, which is The Rebalancing Act, Wisdom from Working Women for Success That Matters, where else can our listeners get in touch with you?
CarolEnneking.com is my website, and they can always contact me there. And of course, on all the social channels as well. Enneking is a pretty unusual name, so hopefully, I'm one of the only Carol Ennekings they would look up. So,
And we'll make sure that those links are in the show notes. Thank you, everyone, for dropping in with us today. If you are watching this on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe and notification bell so you get access to the latest episodes. And if you're listening on the podcast, we so appreciate you. Be sure to rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends so that they can learn about how amazing Carol is and use their influential voice for good as well. Remember, everybody, your voice matters. Big love.